Hi everybody, we are back with the part 14 of the Godot 4 video course. Let's proceed with adding more scenes to our game project, and this time we will focus on the game settings. Many interesting things and new tricks await you to improve your game. For instance, screen resolution, gamma correction, audio volumes, and more. Let's make the game even more flexible. So, to accommodate these customization needs, we will develop a new scene dedicated to enabling players to modify various options according to their preferences. But first, we will add a new autoload script to make it happen. So let's right click here and create new script, and this time we'll call it Options Manager. Okay. Let's open project settings and add it to the autoload section. Click, and here it is, Options Manager, and add. Good. Now let's open this script, and we'll get rid of this stuff we don't need to have there because this is a utility class. We'll start with defining a constant that would be passed to the options file. Path is, and we'll put it to the user area. Options data. Okay. And now we need functions to read them and write them. Let's start with reading, where options is empty dictionary. We will put it to the dictionary structure, which is, I would say, the best choice for this. Return options. Now we need to fill it with some values. So let's open the file. File access, open. If you came from Godot 3, you probably remember that file operations had been done in a slightly different way, but I think that Godot authors simplified that in the 4th version. And we open it for reading. So now if file exists and was opened, let's read the options from it. File get var, and let's close the file properly. Very well. Now let's add the write function. Func write options, and we need to provide the current values. So again, we'll open the file access, and open options path, and this time it will be for writing. Oh, there's a dot instead of comma. File access write, and we will provide the values. Why does it show an error? I'm not sure, I'll find out later. Of course, double file access, sorry. File store var options to just store the whole dictionary, and file close. Okay, that should be enough for the utility class. Okay, let's proceed with creating the scene for settings. So we'll scroll down here to the scenes folder, right click, create new scene, 3D scene, and we'll call it settings tscn. Okay, and let's add a script, settings gd. Very well. And since we want to reuse the already existing features from other scene, we'll just copy directional light, camera, 3D, and world environment from the main scene. So let me just, to be sure, select them again. World environment, Control C, back to the settings scene, and Control V. Great. Now let's add the settings elements. We'll switch to 2D, and zoom out to see the whole viewport. Right click settings and we'll add a canvas layer. And why did it switch? Okay, back. And right click canvas layer and we'll add a child node grade container. Where do we have grade container? Let's find it. Grade container. Okay. Let's rename it to options container. It will contain all the options we want to display here and allow the user to change them. And we'll set its number of columns to 2, just like before, key and value. Now let's right click canvas layer again, add another child node, and that would be margin container. We will call it back container because we need a back button to let the user get back to menu after all settings are set. Back container, and we will set its layout property to center bottom. There it is. Right click, add child node, and this time it will be button. We will rename to back button. Okay, let's give it a default text back and switch to the signals panel, and we are interested in the signal pressed. Let's double click the signal, click connect, and it was added, the callback function was added to the settings script. Okay, along with pressing the back button, let's return to the menu scene after pressing the escape key as well. This is just a standard way to do that. So we will add the following code to the same script settings GD. It would be here. I think ready is not necessary. Neither is process. So func input event. Yeah, this is the mandatory parameter here. And if input is action just pressed, and we are using UI cancel, which is by default mapped to the escape key. Let's get back to main menu, and we will create a function because we need to do this at least twice. So this will help us avoid a duplicated code. Func back to main menu, get tree, and change scene. Change scene to file, res scenes menu tscn. Okay, so now we can call this function from here back to main menu, and the same will be called here when the back button is pressed. Back to main menu. Okay. I think we should improve the font and font size for this button as well. So let's just find theme overrides, fonts, and our font here. I'll drag it there and change the font size to 40 to make it consistent with other buttons we already have at the menu screen. Okay, and what else? Yes, of course, we need to get to the settings scene by pressing a new button from menu. So let's open that, duplicate the start button, and we'll call it settings button. Okay, and change the text. Very well. And of course we need to map it to a new callback function. So let's right click this one, disconnect, and double click it again, which should create a correct function on settings button pressed. And once the button is pressed, we want to just change a scene. So let's copy this and paste it here and change it to scenes settings. Okay, let's run the game and check it. Okay, the new settings button is here. When you press it, it shows just the empty settings page with only the back button. We can either click that or press escape and we get back to the menu screen. Exit. Now that our system of settings is ready, we are ready to move forward and offer game options to the player. We can begin by allowing them to customize the dimensions of the game window. As I mentioned earlier, we intentionally disabled the ability to manually resize the game window. However, to provide options for adjusting the window size is important, so we have decided to implement a solution that offers a selection of commonly used resolutions in a list format. Additionally, we will include a toggle switch to enable or disable full screen mode. This way, players will have the flexibility to adjust the game window according to their preferences. So we will open the Options Manager again, and first let's add the list of window sizes, at least a few of them, which can be improved later. Window size list is, and it would be an array, so with array of dictionaries with these properties. Width, let's start with 1024, and height, that would be, I think, 768, right? Yes, I think this is correct. And let's copy that and add a few more entries. 1, 2, 3, 4, that should be enough. So I got the list here, let me just copy that. 80 by 70, 720, 1366, 768, 16. This is, I think this is our default resolution we set in the project settings. And finally, let's add Full HD. 1920 by 1080. Okay, let's work with this for now. And let's add a new function that would be called set window mode. Func set window mode. First, we want to make sure that we have some default values. So var window mode is display server window mode windowed window mode. Okay, so the game would open in a window just like it does at this moment. And let's read the options now. Read options, and first we'll handle a full screen switch. If options has the value the key full screen, window mode would be changed to full screen. What was that? Display server. Display server window mode full screen. Okay. And that's not enough, because after several switches from full screen to window and back, the options would contain this key but with the value false. So we need to check the value itself. So let's change to full screen only if options full screen is set to true, else let's keep the window mode. Okay, good. Now let's activate that and write options. So display server window set mode, and it would be the window mode, and write it to make it persistent. Write options. Okay, this is the first function, and now to resize the window dimensions. Func resize window. Again, we want to read the options. Let me just copy that line, and if not, options has full screen, or not options full screen, because it doesn't make sense to change the size if we are already in a full screen. Full screen is just full screen. So if it's not that case, let's set the window size is vector 2i, because this time it's a vector of integers, not floats. Options window width and options window height. Okay, and let's make sure that that the window is centered, and for that we need to get the screen size first. Screen size, display server, get screen. Is that correct? Yeah. No. It's a bit confusing. It's not get screen size, it's screen get size for some reason. Screen get size. Okay. And now to change the actual window of the game, get window size is window size, and change the position to make it positioned in the center. Display server window set position, and another vector 2i, and this time it would be screen size x minus window size x, and let's divide it by 2 to get the central point, and the same for the other coordinate. So screen size y minus window size y divided by 2. Okay, that should be working. And I also added a second line to call options resize window. And there is one more thing we need to do, because at the start these options wouldn't exist, so Godot will throw an error here. In that case, it's better to make this additional check here, to just skip the whole part until we set them in some other part of the scene. Okay, let's run it just to make sure that it's not broken. Yeah, seems to be okay. Now we'll get back to the settings scenes and add the UI elements. So let's switch to 2D view and click the options container and right click that, add a child node. We start with a label. That would be label for window size. Okay, let's give it a text, window size. Right click the container again and Now we need a select box, which is called option button in Godot. Option button, and let's call it window size option button. Okay, it's empty for now. And again, we need another label. Let's duplicate this one and move it down there. And let's call it full screen label. Okay, and we'll give it the text full screen. And finally, we need a switch, which can be some kind of a checkbox or another toggle button. So right click, add child node, and it would be check button. Check button. And we will give it the name full screen button. Full screen button. I will fix the fonts of labels. Let's click there and find their theme overrides fonts. I will drag the usual font there, and let's set font size to 20, for instance, and the same for the full screen label. There it is, theme overrides, fonts, font, and font size 20. Very well, now we want to center this container, so let's open it in the inspector and change layout anchor presets to center here. Okay, that looks pretty fine. Now we will select the window size option button and connect the signal item selected, because each time we change the window size, we want to see the result instantly. Double click and connect. The function has been created, and we will select the full screen button and select the signal toggled. Okay, and now it's time to improve the script to do all the work behind that. We start with adding the references to elements we will be working with. So first it's the window size option button. Let's control drag it here, and of course the full screen button. All right, and we of course will need the options to store the current set of settings. So var options, and okay, it seems we really need the function ready here. I was mistaken, so let me put it back. Ready. And first we need to get the current options, because equals the settings, the elements should be set to what was saved by the player before, to reflect the real state. Read options. Okay, and again, if options has full screen, let's toggle the button, full screen button, set, pressed, no signal. In fact, we are not working here with other signals, but maybe this is a safer way, because if we call it just set pressed, perhaps the signal would be sent and the callback would be called again, which is not what we want. So let's do it this way. Options, full screen. Okay, and now we want to fill the window size option button. Let's start with clearing that, just in case something was left there from the previous visit of the page, of the scene. Clear, and okay, var screen size is display server screen get size. We need that to make sure that we only allow to select the options that fit the current screen size, because it doesn't make sense to offer 8K option if we are only on a full HD monitor. And var index is 0 because we'll be iterating. Now for size in the list we made in the options manager, window size list, and make a check if size width is less or equal to the screen size X, and size height the same for the screen side. Damn it. Screen size Y. Then window size option button. Let's add a new item. And this item would be just numbers, and we need to convert them to strings, so it's str size width plus x plus str size height. Okay, and let's make one more check if options has window width, just to know which option should be selected by default. And size width equals options window width, and the same for height. Let me just copy paste to make it faster. As window height and size height is option window height. In that case, and all right, in that case, let's set window. What's wrong there? Yeah, I'm at the again. Sorry. Window size option button, select index, so it makes it selected just as we want it. What's wrong here? Size width, of course, that should be a dot, not an underscore. Okay, and of course we need to increase the index. Very well. So this is the ready function, and now of course we need to fill the callback functions. So let's start with full screen, for example. It should be easier. So options full screen is either true or false based on the button pressed, based on the state the button is currently in. And let's write it. Options manager, not only write it but activate it. So let's start with writing, write options, and options is the parameter. And now options manager, set window mode, and options manager resize window. Okay. because of course if we were in full screen mode and then just disable it, the window should be resized to get the correct version, get the correct option value from the options. And let's do a similar thing for the size select box. So var size is options manager, window size list, and index, so we get the correct numbers from the table, from the list, and set it to options. Options window width is size width, options window height is size height, and again we need to write options and probably resize window only. We are not changing the window mode here. Write options and resize window. Let's try it. But before we do, I just fixed a typo with the brackets here. So please make sure that the vector2i constructor is correct and has two parameters as it's supposed to have. Now, when we run the game and go to settings, we can see these two options here, and let's test them. We'll start with full screen. Okay, we are in full screen, get back, correct, and now we can change the resolution. So for example, let's try the smallest one, seems to be working, or full HD, yeah, this is full, in fact full screen for me. Let's get back to this value, and that should be okay. Exit. Another important option to set in the setting page is the gamma correction, because as we are aware, different computers have different brightness and contrast settings. In the context of Godot, we'll be modifying the exposure value of the environment's tone map feature, as it closely resembles the concept of gamma correction and it's convenient to manipulate. There are basically two approaches to accomplish this. We can either add the exposure slider to the game screen and allow the player to adjust it during the gameplay, or we can stick with the settings scene and display several game assets there to see the exposure changes on them. In this tutorial, we'll implement the second option. So let's open the settings scene. It's already opened, and this time let's drag an asteroid and UFO ship there. Let's find this scene here in the file system. Asteroid. That's it, and the ship should be here. Okay, great. Now we need to adjust their coordinates at the 3D editor. So I will switch to the top view, pressing Y here, zoom out a little bit, and then okay, it seems I added a bullet instead of a ship. Sorry about that. Let's delete it, delete the node, and drag the ship. That should be correct. Okay, this is big. I think we'll need to adjust the scale as well. But okay, let's start with the asteroid. We'll move it to the left, and the ship would be to the right of the settings buttons. Let's do it now. So scale is here. Yeah, that should be okay. Very well. And now we need to make the changes at the settings script. So let's click back to script, and first we'll drag these new nodes here with control. No, of course not. This is not the correct script. We are at the options manager. Sorry about that. Settings is here. So I will drag the asteroid and the UFO ship. Okay. And in the function ready, we need to we need to give them some motion, because it would be nice if they rotate slowly so we can see the light reflections and other things as a result of the exposure change. So I will just add functions here to the end. Spawn asteroid and spawn UFO, and let's implement them. We'll do it at the bottom. Okay, func spawn asteroid. So we'll define the usual spawn variables here. Var spawn equals it points 20 chords 0. Yeah, in fact, we can put anything there because we won't be calling the position change here. But the parameter is still mandatory. The init function of the lifecycle would expect that. So if we don't add it, it would end up with an error. And scale, it can be without a change. 1, 1, 1, and now direction, which is static, it won't move, vector 3, 0, and rotation. This is the only property that makes some impact here, so let's make it rotate randomly. Utils get random vector 3 in range from point 1 to 1. Okay, this is the asteroid span parameters, and of course we need to init that. Asteroid init self, as we'll be adding that to the settings scene, not the main scene. Spawn and no timeline, of course. Alright, let's do a similar thing for the ship. Spawn UFO, and this time this is same, nothing is changed here, only the rotation, let's make it static this time. Vector 3, 0, 0.2. Okay, and the UFO ship init with the same parameters. Alright, let's try it out and start the game, switch to settings. Yeah, the elements are there, but definitely not as we expected. We want them a big, I would say bigger, and a lot bigger, and at the left and right side of the option pane. So let's go back, exit, and fix that. First we will change the coordinates. Let's move it farther there. Okay, and we need to change the scale. So actually maybe this was correct, the original scale. Let's try it, and for asteroid we'll increase it. Okay, that should be hopefully fine. Let's check it out. Yeah, a lot better. Maybe even bigger we could make them. But okay, let me do it just quickly. This and this. Settings. Yeah, that's a lot better. And after we add the gamma correction slider and just manipulate that, we'll be able to observe the changes directly in these elements. So I'll proceed with adding the gamma correction slider. We switch back to the 2D editor, and we'll add 2 more elements to the option container. First we need a label. Let's duplicate this one and move it to the end and rename it to gamma label, and change the text to gamma correction. Okay, and right click option, container, add child node, and what we need now is H slider, horizontal slider. There it goes, and we'll rename it to gamma slider. Gamma slider. Now let's select it, open it in the inspector, and we'll set the max property value to 16, which is the actual max value of the exposure, and let's change the step to 0.01 to allow fine-grained changes. Finally, we need to set a signal, so let's open the list of signals, and we are interested in the value changed here. Okay, let's connect it, and now we need to make these changes in the script. So first we'll be working with the world environment. Let me drag it here, and of course the new gamma slider. Let's do this. Okay, this is ready, and in the ready function we need to set the actual value taken from the options. So gamma slider value would be options, and we'll call it tone map exposure, because that's how it's called in Godot. If options has this property, let's copy paste to avoid spelling errors, else the default value would be 1. That's okay, and now we need to implement the callback function. Let's do it. Options tone map exposure is the value taken from the current slider value, and we need to write the options. Options manager, write options, and finally apply the change to the world environment. So world environment, reference to environment property, and tone map exposure is the new value from our options. Okay, let's check it. Run the game. A new setting should be here. Oh, it's not. What did we do wrong? Options as tone map exposure, else value of type float. What's the problem? Invalid set index value H slider. Of course, this is the typo, sorry. Again, now it's here, and let's observe the changes. Now it's too bright, isn't it? Let's move it to the left. Not visible at all, so perhaps this is the expected value we want. Let's try it in the game. Start. And yeah, I would say it's a bit darker. So yes. By the way, you might have noticed that the game wrote some errors to the console. Let's check them. Yeah, it seems the reason is that the reason is that the inclusion of two game objects, namely the asteroid and UFO ship, within the scene settings scene, it doesn't emit any signal. So it's expected to emit a signal of enemy spawned, but it's not caught there. There is no callback. So we will easily fix that by adding the callback here. Settings, get back to lifecycle, and all we need to do is just do this func on enemy spawned enemy and pass. Nothing to do here. Let's try it again. Go to the settings page, back, exit, errors are gone. Great. If you check the sample project I created on GitHub, you might have noticed that there was one more graphic option to set, and it was vertical synchronization, or VSync. Shortly, it's a technique used in computer graphics to synchronize the frame rate of a game with the refresh rate of the display. In fact, I don't recommend to change it, and if you want to avoid any troubles, just keep it enabled all times. But if, for example, you have some specific reason or you want to test the game under a much higher frame rate than your computer allows, there is a way to do that, and just follow the code on the GitHub project and simply copy and paste that. Let's just verify what is the default settings here in the project. So project settings, general display, here it is, and window. Let's scroll down, there should be VSync somewhere. Yeah, it is here, it's enabled. There are 4 modes in Godot 4. I think there were only 2 in Godot 3, enable, disabled, but as I said, you don't need to worry about that unless you have some very good reason to do it. Okay, I think that could be enough for this video, and next time we'll be working with audio. We will explore the audio mixer, Godot's audio system, and finally add some sliders to adjust the volume of sound effects, because I think they are too loud at this moment. When I play the game and comment it, you can barely understand me, I suppose. So let's do something about that next time.